Hello, people. I had maybe a subscriber or somebody leave me a message, and they had thanks for watching, by the way. And they had asked me if I had looked into flat Earth theory. Um, I have a little bit. I've seen a couple documentaries about it, and I Wikipedia'd it and Googled it a few times back in the day, and I looked at the couple of guys that I can't remember their name for the life of me, that kind of kicked the idea back up. One of them was looking at the UN symbol and basing it on that, which is 2D geometry, the Christ consciousness grid, or the grid system that we use. If you think of it three-dimensionally, you can complete that in your head and see the whole grid. But you know, anything's possible. But the way I look at it is studying history. As far back as you can go, people have sought after spirituality and piety, or philosophy and piety. Piety is understanding the movement of circles, circadian rhythm, and philosophy and spirituality is the study of the spin and the movement of everything in the solar system, the galaxy, the universe, everything on a macro and microscopic scale. And of course, our whole system of science is based around those things: scale invariant harmony, the imperial system, and our body in the middle of all that. One of the things I think that led to the flat Earth originally, because as far back as I can studying world religions and what science was back then, everybody had a clue, going back thousands of years, that the Earth was round. The study of the sacred geometry that goes back really far, two-dimensionally would leave you hanging that it might be flat, but when you think of 3D, three-dimensionally terms, it all starts to make sense in how it applies to scale invariant harmony, climbing the cosmic ladder, all this good stuff. Now, the people that were privy to that information were elite, priest class, wealthy people who can go to the mystery schools in Egypt and study this stuff. And there's another monument there in Egypt that, if you study intensely the scale invariance of the Great Pyramid of Giza, you'll see that gives you a clue that everything is round and spinning as well. But this privileged class that got to study this information, they were mapping and charting the world and sailing and traveling and charting and traveling the Silk Roads, the trade routes. There's evidence that even some of the Native American tribes could have been left behind from early mining cultures, from the Phoenicians and people like that were sailing across the globe, and the Chinese and perhaps the Japanese or the Eastern cultures had sailed to the western side of the United States thousands of years ago. So inherently, people knew that if you sailed one way, you'd come back around again. Personal experiences, I have family members that have sailed and flown around the world, and I've gone up high enough to see the Earth's curvature, and I've watched boats sail out on the horizon and cascade over. So just those common basic things is what makes me believe that the Earth is round. But to my point was that these elite societies, this class of people that were mapping things would map them on a piece of paper. Okay, and so when you hear things maybe in the Bible that said to the edges of the earth, or the four corners of the earth, when you hear things like that throughout history, that leads you to the fact that maybe that Earth was flat. You got to remember that the guys that were mapping the Earth were putting the Earth in a two-dimensional perspective with this grid system. And to the layman, or the person who wasn't uninitiated, you could look at that and potentially think, if I keep sailing, I'm going to fall off the edge of this. So literally, there were a lower class of people who just through the observance of the higher class people think that the world is flat. A good example would be, Columbus when he sailed over here. He had the knowledge of the skies, the charts, how to travel, where to go. He knew this place because he got this information handed down to him. And he got captured by some cannibalistic natives, and just because he had a calendar and a chart for the sun, he knew that there'd be an eclipse coming. And there's another thing that gives you clues that everything's circular based, from our cellular structures to the sun and the moon and everything you see in the sky. It's somewhat of a spherical structure if it's caught in orbit, unless it's just a chunk of debris floating around out there. A lot of people just imagine a deckhand with no education gets on a boat, sees a captain pull out this map, and he says, "We're sailing this way." And they see, there's nothing there. Where are you going? We're going to sail off the edge of the table. And that was literally the difference between two-dimensional thinking and three-dimensional thinking, which is an enlightened consciousness, if you want to think of it. Think about all these New Age people talking about the fourth dimension, and trying to reach to the fifth dimension and all this stuff. Well, in some ways, and not to be rude or disrespectful, but flat earthers might need to quit thinking two-dimensionally and start thinking three-dimensionally, and you can grasp the universe a little bit better as far as scale invariant harmony of the imperial system, or measuring the distant star movements with arc seconds, which is all timed around our hearts. And that's the coolest thing, is that all of that knowledge is around the hearts, and the hearts start out as little spheres, like I explained in my sacred geometry video. You've got these little pacer sails that start spreading out, and they have this spontaneous ability to create electromagnetic dynamics, and right from birth, right from the cells start to develop, these little round cells, everything's timed at about 72 beats per minute. And then, it's pretty cool. So, do I know anything about flat Earth? I'm not totally into that theory, so I didn't dive real deep, but I did study a lot, and honestly, my personal opinion, think three-dimensionally as opposed to two-dimensionally. You can't see your own back, but it's back there. You gotta spin around to try to see it. That's silly. Have a great day, people. Be blessed.